Hey guys, what's going on? So, I lost everything. I lost my family. I lost money. And I just about lost my life twice. So now I'm going to tell you my life story. Just parts of it, because I'm not going to sit here all day and talk about this. It's just to give you an idea of what I've gone through. So, as a kid, I was always one to help. Always. I was in martial arts. My mom put me in at martial arts when I was 4 years old. I always looked out for the underdogs, the ones that were getting picked on. There was many times when I was younger where I was in class and people would get picked on, and I even had teachers come up to me and say, "Hey, Guy, can you do something about this? Can you help?" And I said, "Yeah." I said, "That's no problem." And because I was in martial arts, people looked up to me. They were like, "Okay, well, let's leave her alone, or let's leave him alone." Whatever the situation was. And I kind of carried that through my whole entire life. I never stopped helping people. I respect everybody. I don't care who you are, what you've gone through. You have my respect until you give me a reason to, until you lose that. And then, anyway, so that's how I was. My mom ended up being a foster parent, and we had a little girl by the name of Serenity. And the doctor gave her 8 months to live. She was born with like half a brain. She was feeding through intravenous tube through her stomach to be able to eat, and she couldn't eat through the mouth. But she ended up living for 8 years, and the doctor said the only reason she lived that long is because the amount of love that she had. So I helped my mom with that. Like every 4 hours she had to eat through that tube, the little intravenous tube in her stomach. So I was able to help my mom a lot with that. I love her to death. She passed away in the home when she was 8 or 9 years old, but man, she felt loved, I can tell you that. And anyways, as life went on, later on in my life, my parents got divorced. It was a nasty thing. I remember, without getting too much into that stuff, but it was nasty. Like my dad had hired some welfare guy, and then he ended up just ruining my mom's mind. And anyways, it just screwed the family right up. Well, my mom and dad, and so I didn't digest that very well, and I ended up rebelling. I went to jail. Got out of jail. And I stopped drinking. I was like, okay, I'm not gonna ruin my life over. So my dad never really got over that. Like, he talked about that for a long time, and I guess near the very end he did, for sure. But he just, like, we were raised on a farm. I was born on a farm. I didn't stay there very long, but our mentality was work, make money. Make money, work, and go to bed and be an honest person. That's what we were. Like, we didn't know about, the different kind of shit that people pull to kind of like manipulate themselves into families. Like, just weird shit. So my mom fell right into that. But, like anybody would. Like, it doesn't matter if it's my mom or anybody, like if you're not aware of things, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody, whatever. Like, it doesn't matter. So anyway, I got out of jail. When I got out of jail, then I stopped drinking and I started my own business. I met these really amazing people. Lived with them for a while because they weren't into drinking and all that. So I looked up to that stuff. I was like, shit, man, like these guys get their stuff together. They kind of set me straight when I was young. And I lived with them a while, and then I found myself a little apartment. And the guy, who was a little Italian guy, he was an amazing guy. I love that guy. And he had a garage, and I was working out section of the garage. Like it was just this little thing. It was like 20 feet wide, whatever it was. But I was so happy because I had my little space. Maybe it was like 10 feet wide or 15 feet long, and I would go buy I went and bought heater lamps at Canadian Tire so I can work in there, and I was building everything. I had a little business. I was proud of myself. Wasn't really doing good. Like I was just paying the bills, but I was just using the hands that God gave me to build with, so I started just building. I'd build anything, like I swear. Like I'd build anything. I was pulling off these crazy kitchen cabinets and this little thing that I was building out of. Anyway, so like I say, and then I was trying to hold on to that little business. So I was I had little jobs. This went on for 5 or 10 years. Like I had these little jobs and just trying to get the business going. But like, I mean, it was just to say I had a business. Like it wasn't really a business. I was running everything, and like it was just like for 5 or 10 years, like for sure. And I wasn't really getting anywhere with that. So, but it was my business. So anyways, I'd make brochures and cards and go to event trade shows and sell curio cabinets. I made urns and kitchen cabinets and stuff. And I never fit in. That was another thing. Like I never fit in anywhere because when I was a kid, I just wanted everybody to do good. I didn't have a crowd that I hung out with. I didn't have people that I wanted to hang out with. Like I wasn't dividing myself like that. I just looked life as a whole, and I just wanted everybody to do good. So so I just was kind of like by myself my whole life. Like I just didn't pick anybody. Wasn't judgmental of anybody. I just kind of did my own thing and helped where I could. But anyway, so 10 years go by, and I get this nasty call at about 11, 12 o'clock at night. My mom gives me a call, and my brother had burned to death. So what happened is that his truck caught on fire, his work truck caught on fire, and he was actually on the phone with his wife. His seatbelt was stuck, and he was driving one of those big fuel, like it was his own business. He was driving one of those fuel truck with a tank in the back or whatever, and he couldn't get the seatbelt off. So he ended up rolling and got caught in there, and I guess his wife heard everything on the phone. So he was such a good guy. He's such a big brother to me. Like I can tell you situations where he was there, because I grew up in a rough neighborhood, and he was always there for me, and he was just a big brother, good person, like a real good person. Like he'd do anything for anybody. Like he just like a good person, And anyway, so after she's telling me the story, and I'll never forget her voice. I'll never forget that voice. Anyway, so at that point I lost my faith a lot. I seriously questioned things. I really didn't. I really questioned stuff. Like how, if there is a God, if there is, these kind of things, how would he let something like that happen to somebody that was good? So it took me 8 months, almost a year, to come back to make sense of that. Because again, I didn't have no mentor. I had nobody to help me or look at things. I had nothing to tell me how to deal with that. So what did I do is I sucked it all in, and I kept it all in. So anyways, life went on. Not too long after that, pretty much almost right after that, my dad got diagnosed with cancer. And the only thing my dad wanted, he wanted to see me successful, because I had this little business, and I was trying to get it going so much, like so hard, and nothing was happening. It was just, he wouldn't even, that's all he wanted, was to see me successful. So at this point, I'm like, oh, okay, like there was a lot of stuff going on. Then I lost over $300,000, probably more, with the business. So everything then I got into building houses, and I lost all that money. and everything that I was doing was like, there was like bad stuff coming out of it. Like there was like you said, I lost 300 grand. So my house wouldn't sell, that I built, bad contracts, people that wouldn't pay, you name it. Like I lost a lot of money there. And then not too long after that, I was over at Silver Falls in Thunder Bay. I'm going to jump from story to story. So not too long after that, I was over at Silver Falls in Thunder Bay, and these people were cliff diving. Like I found out what the story was after, because it was just me and my friend there, Jamie, and we were sea-doing. And they were jumping off this cliff, but the waves that day, we actually came back to shore because the waves were so fucking high. Like there were just massive fucking waves, like huge fucking waves. And yeah, they were just so fucking high that, I guess when she jumped, like I didn't know these people from a hole in the ground, she drowned, because so the guy come running down and he's like, she's drowning, and I was like, what do you mean? Who's drowning? What the fuck's going on here? So he's pointing to the water and he says, she's drowning, she jumped off the thing or whatever. So I ran down to the dock, I got my friend Jamie, we jumped on the Sea-Doos and we went out, and these waves were fucking nuts, like crazy. So literally nobody should have been on that water with anything at that point, because the waves were like crazy. So I spotted the body. I could see it just coming up and down, out of the water. So I jumped out of the water and jumped into the water. Didn't think twice. Just jumped right in there, grabbed her. He zoomed around with the Sea-Doo. She was full of water, black and blue. She was under the water a little bit. So I pulled her up alongside the Sea-Doo, and we drove to the dock. And like I said, but like when I got there, she had been in there. Well, I don't know how long, but she was just black and like blue, and so when I pulled her up on the dock, anyways, long story short, the ambulance came and got her, and brought her to the hospital. She ended up passing away at the hospital. So I questioned myself at that point. I questioned myself a lot. Like, what could I have done better? What? How could I get out there faster? But there was nothing that I could have done better than that, because when that guy come down there, I didn't even think twice. I ran down to the dock. Again, me helping people, I don't care who you are. I ran down to the dock, I jumped on that fucking Sea-Doo, and I was out there, and I went and got her without even thinking. There was no like, oh, should I do this, should I not? It was, let's go, there was no. So, but again, that's a big question of faith and stuff like that. So at this point, my house wouldn't sell, so I ended up having to rent this little apartment and try to get a renter for my big house, because I couldn't afford the bills. And the guy that I had rented the big house out to, the one that I had built to sell to make money, didn't pay my rent. He wasn't paying rent. And anybody that knows that people that don't pay rent, what happens, and how, you don't get money from these guys right away. It's got to go to court and everything else. My bills were just piling up and piling up and piling up. And I had rented this little shack apartment to stay in. And I started driving a taxi to pay for my bills. And he said, well, pay for the interest. I wasn't paying my bills. I was paying for the interest so I wouldn't go bankrupt. So at that point, I was driving a taxi, but everybody that was getting into my taxi, one thing I remember about that, I was helping everybody. Whether it was through a talk, inspiring talk, or something that I could say to them that they'd have an amazing day. Or if it was somebody that with their groceries or whatever, I was always helping people. Even me going through all that shit, I was still helping. It didn't matter what I was going through. I was still helping people. I did not turn into a nasty person towards people. So I ended up pulling a lady out of the snowbank. It was like 25, 30 below. I drove by and I saw like a black black thing in the snowbank. I came back and I looked, and it was a lady that was in the snowbank, and it was actually like probably about 25, 30 below outside. It was freezing. I did night shift, so I got to see like the nightlife of driving a taxi. So, and that's an interesting story altogether. But anyways, I'm trying to get through this just so you have an idea of my story, some of it. And so I pulled her in a cab. If I would have left her in that snowbank, she's guaranteed she would have been dead. She was drunk. She was fucked up. And then not too long after that, I was driving down the road with the taxi in the middle of the night, and I see this person running. I'm fucking driving, I'm running the taxi, and this person doesn't have fucking shoes on. So I'm like, what the hell? So then I pull up beside her. I said, what the fuck are you doing? And she says, I said, get in the cab. And she's like, oh, you mind? I said, no. I said, get in the cab. So she got in the cab, and she was messed right up. I don't even think she realized how messed up she was, and she didn't realize how cold it was outside. She would have probably lost some toes that night for sure. I can go on and on and on about cab stories, about me driving a cab and all the people that I help, but I'll tell you one more. There was, I pulled up, well, they used to call that Armani's, but I think they're reopened now, and there was a guy outside, and he was getting stomped by 5 other guys that were jumping on his head and fucking all kinds of shit. So I drove up. It was late at night. I think it was like 3 in the morning. And I zoomed up behind them, honked the horn, and what the fuck are you guys doing? And they kind of scattered, and I picked them up, and I brought him to the car. His face just looked like fucking hamburger. He had fucking teeth all over the fucking place in his mouth, and just fucked right up. So I called the ambulance. The ambulance got there, and had I not showed up there that night again, that guy would have got. It wouldn't have been good. I don't know what would have happened, but it wouldn't have been good. And I found out later on that they were just doing that because But anyways, so there was all kinds of stories like that. Yeah, it was all stuff like that. Let me see. I wrote a couple notes there. So I remember the cab company ended up getting pissed off at me because they were always pissed off at me, actually, because I wasn't metering stuff like that. So if somebody comes along and they needed help and stuff, I wasn't putting it on a meter. I'm not going to put you on a meter if you're in a place where you're going to die, or like you're in a bad place. I'm not doing that. I don't give a shit. Fire me, but they were in such need for cab drivers there. I don't think they would have fired me. I don't know. But and then in between that and people requesting me, because people started requesting me all the time, they hated that too. They hated that a lot. Because everybody was like, oh, can I get Guy as a driver? Because I made it a point every day I did thousands of trips. And I made it a point that everybody that would get into my car, I would leave them something fucking good. It didn't matter. I would just leave them something good. So anyway, so life went on, and obviously I wasn't doing good at that point. People would get in that taxi and they'd be like, "Holy shit! Like, you're not doing contracting anymore," And it was it was actually really embarrassing because I was like, I didn't know how to think about it. So I was like, yeah, I'm doing cab driving. Oh, your business ain't going good? Well, it's going all right, but not good enough. So it's shitty, like you put your heart and soul into something, and then people know you as something, and then you start driving a taxi, and then people see you like that. There's a feeling inside you that's not, and people could say, oh, I wouldn't care, but nah, yeah, you do. Your pride gets, hit there, like, seriously. So, anyways, then I had a huge heartbreak, like fucking huge one. The fiance that I was with when I started building houses, she loved that, but when I started driving a taxi and she saw all the bad stuff that was happening to me, in my life, she decided to leave. So that moment there just crushed my heart. Like that just a feeling of total loss after all that. Just lost so much stuff. Then I got back into the dating scene after that. I got back into the dating scene, and I said, well, let's go. You know, there's other women out there. Even though I had gone through all that stuff, you got to keep going. So then I got back on the dating scene, and I met this girl, and we ended up I ended up renting a hotel out in Kenora, because, you know, you go that long, you know, it's kind of time to do something, you know. So it was more of a friend thing, but I mean, any guy that, you know. But anyway, so we were on our way to Kenora, and I saw this huge flame, like this massive flame, and I gotta go check that out. She says, Gee, what are you doing? And I says, well, there's a fire there. Let's go see what the hell's going on. I'm in these back roads, and I just met this girl, and she's like, you know, like, she didn't know, like, really who I was. She knew a little bit, like, we talked a bit, but, like, going in these back roads, going all nuts, trying to find this house. I roll up on a house, and it's the garage is on fire, and the house is on fire, whatever. I'm gonna make this story short too, because there's more to it. Like, there's more steps to the story, but the meat of it, I ended up breaking a window to get in the house to go see if there was anybody in there. And the minute that I did that, I just about took my life. So the guy that was in there had gun shells. He was a hunter, and the flame went through that house like a furnace, and those bullets were going off all over the place, and bang, 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 bang. Anyways, I ended up going down to the cop shop, filled out a report on that one. Yeah, so that was like, holy shit, like, that just about took my life with that. And so then I said, you know what, when I got back to Thunder Bay, I said, well, let's go back to school. Let's do something with that. Yeah, let's check it out. And this is the only way that I could get money too. Like I could go back to trying to, you know, keep my bills going and driving a taxi, but that wasn't happening. Like, it was just like I had to do something. So I went back to school, and I failed everything that I tried. I went to piloting school. They had me in 2 different classes at the same time. So there's no way in hell. Like, it was one of those programs that were so hard to begin with that if you're in 2 classes, you're done. So anyways, and I wasn't able to get any more funding. I'm like, that was it for school. So I was failing school, losing the fiance, and everything else before that. Then after that, I had to, after I failed school, I had to find, you know, I didn't have money, so I slept in my vehicle. I ended up sleeping in my uncle's place. His lifestyle wasn't my lifestyle. I love my uncle, love him, but it wasn't my lifestyle. That wasn't my thing. And he lived in kind of a shoddy neighborhood too, there, and yelling and screaming in the middle of the night, coming from the windows. It was just shit. So then I ended up getting a contract. Okay, like, it wasn't a huge contract. It was nothing big. A contract with a business, but it was okay. And so I went to work, and I injured my back real bad. Like, really bad, to a point that I couldn't even walk, like, in the morning. So that put me in bed for about 6 to 8 months. I had to move. This is even more embarrassing because I had to move in with my mother. You know, I was sleeping in my truck with an injured back, and her mom was like, so I moved in with my mother. The most embarrassing thing, man. So embarrassing. If you ever have to move back in with your mother, and, you know, a lot of people have to do that because, you know, they're going to have to go through life and build themselves. So I ended up moving back in with my mother, and that was super embarrassing. And then I witnessed my mother being abused. So I was actually lying in bed, reading a book, and I could hear yelling and screaming and arguing. So I went to go see what was going on, and it was her her and her husband, her husband yelling. My mom doesn't yell and stuff. He was yelling and losing it on her, and I got up and I said, okay, well, it was about me being there. He didn't want me being there, and I said, okay, well, I'm gonna leave then. And then when I left, he verbally abused my mother, and then got up and then he went to go towards me. My mother got in the way, and then he threw her up against the wall. And then he tried to come after me. Well, that didn't work out too well for him. He ended up in the cabinets. And my mom intervened in there because he would have been way farther in those cabinets and I would have probably been in jail. But long story short, he tried charging me with the cops, and the cops are like, yeah, no, we ain't charging you. You know, for what you've done, we're not charging you. Like, you know, he was totally in the wrong with everything. So anyway, so I just about went to jail there. So that was kind of like nerve-wracking. You know, you're all screwed up, your back is all screwed up. I was able to do what I had to do there, but you know, like, so at this point I'm like, oh my god, man, like, what am I gonna do with my life here? So then my mom gave me some money. She had money, and she says, just go to Ottawa, you know, make something out of yourself. So I was like, okay, let's keep going. We gotta keep going. You know, what are you gonna do? So I took her money, and then I took off to Ottawa. Right before I get to Ottawa, I get a call that my dad's really in bad shape. So I was talking to my dad on the phone because he had the cancer and he was in hospice. And I said, Dad, I'll come back right now. He says, I don't want to see you back here. Look at what's happening. Look what's going on. Like, I don't want to see you back here. And he saw all the shit that I was going through, all the things that I was going through. But he says, Ski, he says, promise me one thing. I said, what, Dad? He said, I want you to make something out of yourself. So that there was the last words that came out of my dad's mouth that I ever heard. Not too long after that was it. He got really, really ill, like really sick, so he couldn't make too much sense, whatever. Like, so I showed up in Ottawa. So imagine I show up in Ottawa and I'm fucked. Like, just in every way. Like, I was just physically, mentally, I was just like, life was just coming at me at every single directions. I could have went all kinds of different directions there, maybe in directions that would have made me feel real good, but it wouldn't have been my path. So anyway, so I showed up in Ottawa, and my dad had left me a little bit of money too when I showed up in Ottawa. I think it was $1,200 or something like that. So I used that $1,200 on a Grant Cardone program, which did absolutely nothing for me at all. I mean, I just didn't have the kind of business, you know, that it just didn't do anything. It wasn't so. Nothing on Grant Cardone because he's done some amazing things. It just didn't do anything for me at the time. But that was the last $1,200. That was the last $1,200 that my dad had. I put it back into my business, hoping that something would come out of that. And then I was so screwed up on the inside, I said to myself, well, let's go have a few drinks. Let's start drinking a little bit to get rid of some of this shit. And that was a lot of stuff I had there. And then my mom told me that my mom actually got cancer. My sister got Parkinson's. More heartbreaking stuff. And again, at this point, I don't know how to deal with this stuff. So it's all building up inside me. So I started drinking. And that drinking stuff just about took my life twice. One time they had to bring me back, and the other time I actually woke up. And I told myself, I said, there has to be something more to life than this fucking shit, man. Like, this is not life here. This is not it. So not too long after that, finish it up with this because this is a long video. Not too long after this, I stumbled across some really cool videos on YouTube, and you know, that's kind of where things that's where things kind of changed for me, because I was broken. I was completely busted at that point. Like, I wasn't even myself anymore. I didn't know how to take life. Just give me a second, guys. I've got some fallen papers here. Anyway, so then I ended up meeting a guy named Chados, and he said to me, he says, "Guy," he says, "that's fucking awesome. All that stuff happened to you." I said, "What?" He says, "That's fucking awesome." I says, "What?" So and then that's when my life changed. My way of thinking changed. I put myself back in the gym. I met some amazing people there. You guys, like, I love the gym. I love everybody in that gym. Just amazing people. And everything started shifting. So, and that's my story. Hope you guys enjoyed it. There's more to it than that. I'm sure you'll hear it along the way, but I mean, that's my story in a nutshell. Love you guys. Ciao.